Hello everybody, I am Lightning Stripe, and today it's time we answer the question, what happened to the other kingdoms? In the movie, the main focus is the reunification of the Pony tribes, and the big mysteries aren't from what we see, but from what we don't see. During this time skip between G4 and G5, it seems many things just disappeared, the biggest thing being literally any sentient creature besides the ponies. I've been meaning to talk about this for some time, and with Tell Your Tale already released, and Make Your Mark coming ever sooner, I decided this would be as good a time as any. However, before we get to the other kingdoms, I want to make a slight update on one of my recent videos I made about Discord. Apparently, he is showing up, but not exactly in the way that I thought. Roll the synopsis. With Discord on the loose, Izzy, Sunny, and Pip hunker down to look for clues. And Detective Zip is on the case too, right? Well, not when Queen Haven is away at a royal conference and needs a babysitter for her beloved Cloudpuff. But Zip ends up pulling double duty when Cloudpuff goes missing too. Enlisting Hitch and his critter whispering prowess, Zip and Hitch set out to find Cloudpuff before Queen Haven returns, and hopefully dig up a clue or two on Discord while they're at it. So, by the looks of it, I may have been half right, and not in the way that I thought it would be. Discord apparently is on the loose, which can only mean that he was trapped between G4 and G5, though I don't think he was in stone this time, or at least that the main 6 did it. Either way, he was trapped somehow, and now the main 5 are trying to look for clues. However, it seems I may have been right about Cloudpuff. He was with them when they found Canterlot, and now he's gone missing at the same time as Discord.
Coincidence? I think not!
Now, I still stand by my theory that it's all a prank to boost the confidence of the main 5, and it seems that Cloudpuff does know Discord's true intentions and is trying to get to him. Maybe that's why he went missing. However, another idea has popped into my mind, and it's quite a sad one. What if Discord is still mourning Fluttershy and is trying to cause chaos as a way to help himself get over it? I don't know about you, but I don't think Discord would be able to get to the last part of grief very easily. He's gonna have a hard time accepting that she's gone, and I think that caused him to take it to extreme measures. At first, I thought maybe that Twilight locked him up because of this, because of something that he did while he was in this difficult time. But then I remember something that Hasbro said, that Twilight won't outlive her friends, meaning that she'd be the first to go, as you probably saw in my last video. Now, what I think happened instead is he isolated himself to be able to handle this pain he was suffering from. While the tribes now divided, there's enough chaos in Equestria to keep him alive. Now that the tribes are united again, he must have felt something and decided to take a look. He's probably been hiding in plain sight through the movie and now decided to help the main 5. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the other kingdoms. In the movie, we all know that the Pony tribe separated and how that caused the fall of magic, but most don't realize how greatly that would affect the other nations. Remember, the ponies aren't the only ones with magic, but that's the thing, what counts as magic? Well, sure, the synopsis for the movie says that all magic is gone, but yet Izzy can sense sparkles and Hitch can communicate with animals. Is that magic? Or is it just a biological ability that they have? In fact, what's the line between biology and magic? Is this magic? What about this? Or this? That's what we have to figure out before we can predict the fate of the other kingdoms. So, to simplify things, I managed to separate all the kingdoms into mainly 2 classes based on their magic. 1. Biological magic, and 2. Emotional magic. Biological magic is magic that does not include any sort of magical aura or control over something else. It's the abilities that characters just have. This includes dragons, griffins, yaks, and zebras. None of these kingdoms rely on magic to do things. Griffins and dragons can fly, but they can't control the weather like Pegasi, so it's just something that they can do. Same with yak strength, that's just yaks being yaks. And if you're wondering, yes, dragonfire is also biological, same as their fireproof scales. However, this only counts for normal fire, not the kind that spikes use to send messages. On the other hand, emotional magic is magic controlled by emotions. This can be taken from the extremes, like Kieran's using their anger to transform, to anything else. Since we know that friendship equals magic, any magic that's not biological would be based on it and therefore affected by the division of the tribes. This includes ponies, for obvious reasons, Kiirins, and changelings. We already know how the ponies were affected, they lost magic. However, I don't think that this would be the case for every creature. Kiirins, for example, I think would be mostly immune to this. You see, while they do rely on emotions for their magic, usually their anger and state of calm, they rely on their own emotions. Let me put it like this. When a Kirin gets angry, it transforms into a Lyric. No outside force required. As long as they're able to get angry, they are able to transform. They're not affected by what the ponies do. The changelings, however, are a whole different story. While they also use emotions to fuel their magic, this time love, they can't make their own. They need to rely on the love of other creatures in order to survive. It's true they now share love instead of stealing it, but they still require another creature to give them that love in order for them to survive. And when you rely on love, half the world's population suddenly dividing and hating each other is gonna cause some trouble for you. In fact, mid last year I wrote a fanfiction called The Last Changeling, which is based on that idea. I'll try not to give away any spoilers, but the basic story explains how the changelings would be negatively affected by the division of the pony tribes. Only it takes things to a more extreme side. But I'll talk more about it later, because there's one more kingdom you probably noticed that I haven't mentioned yet: the Hippogriffs. The Hippogriffs are a weird case. You see, Hippogriffs don't have any magical abilities by themselves, but they do have their transformation pearl. Since the pearl is an object, not a creature, it doesn't fit into the biological magic category, so instead, it counts as emotional magic. Its magic has to be based on friendship. Because of this, it would also be affected by the division. As the pearl begins to weaken, sea ponies will begin to transform back into hippogriffs, which may cause some accidents depending on where they are when that happens. Over time, the pearl would lose all of its power, and the hippogriffs would lose all of Sequestria, half their territory gone, just like that. And this would put the hippogriffs in a similar position to Earth in the MCU after the blimp. Suddenly, Mount Eris would have twice its population and resources for only half. Without Sequestria, they would also lose a lot of crops, even with their superior navy. This would force them to choose between conquering more land or lose population. In usual cases, there would also be a third choice: seek refuge with other nations. However, this probably wouldn't go very well with the ponies now separated. Since we haven't seen any sign of them, I don't think they've expanded their territory either. Speaking of which, now that we've got the magic stuff out of the way, I can go more into depth with what the kingdoms would do right after the separation. Most kingdoms, I believe, would still be able to survive without the help of the ponies. They did so for a long time after all. Since we already talked about the hippogriffs, let's go to the cousins, the griffins. Without the cheery ponies around, they would probably go back to the grumpy ways of hating each other. There's not much to go from there since that's how they stayed for about 100 years. The Kirins would silently go back to the secret forest, since they sadly never played a huge part in equestrian history. The Yaks, being proud and stubborn as they are, would be quick to claim that they never needed the ponies in the first place and go back to the mountains. While the division of the tribes wouldn't affect them too much, this claim would probably anger those who were closer to the ponies. Dragon Lord Ember will have a difficult time with her kingdom having similar thoughts than the Yaks and Griffins. She herself would be slightly angry at the Yaks at their claim, but will ignore them as she tries to help the ponies. However, we all know how she is, and her lack of talking skills would probably end up making things worse, and she would give up when she realizes it. The most affected, however, would be the changelings. You see, the entirety of changing society is based upon the ideals of friendship, harmony, and sharing love, things that the ponies taught them. Now, imagine how they would feel as the ponies themselves begin to break those exact ideals. It would be chaos. Thorax would attempt to convince the changelings that the path they're on is the right one, pointing out to how much better they've been doing since they began sharing love instead of stealing it. However, his brother Pharynx would do the opposite. He would feel betrayed, tricked, and he would believe this new society was built upon a lie. Both brothers would get into an argument, which would be very troubling for the rest of the changelings. This argument would nearly divide the kingdoms in two, shaking the amount of love that they give each other. This would be terrible, because it would decrease the food source of the entire kingdom, and over time, it would only get worse. Pharynx, although stubborn and disagreeing with his brother, would never leave Thorax's side. He's still his brother after all. This would mean that the argument could go on forever, dividing the changelings further and draining their food source. After some time, they would notice that they had gone too far, but by now the damage would have been done. They call a meeting for the other kingdoms, and the ponies are the only ones who don't show up. They state their problem, but by now the other kingdoms are far too divided, and the only ones to agree to help would probably be Ember. But no matter how hard she tries, the love she has isn't enough for a whole kingdom, and they slowly run out of food. Whether they manage to survive or not is something they will have to wait to see and figure out when the new series comes out. And in the middle of all this chaos, there's another kingdom that might be in trouble. Well, an empire actually, the Crystal Empire. The difference between them and the other kingdoms is obvious: the ponies. Because of this, they'll try to help as much as possible when the tribes first begin to show hostility towards the others. However, having an empire that's 95% Earth pony won't help when everybody else is hating on each other. The other tribes probably won't accept any of their help because their kingdom has ponies over the other tribes in it. The other kingdoms will also have a hard time trusting them because of this. When the changelings start having problems and call a meeting, they may not even receive a message depending on who's delivering them. I also highly doubt that the Crystal Empire would choose a side, seeing as their entire survival relies on the Crystal Heart, which is fueled by the love of the citizens. They will lean more towards the saying, make love, not war, since their leader is literally the Princess of Love, and they'll mostly try to stay out of conflict. I also think that the Empire will remain non-discriminative towards the others. In fact, I like to think that over time, they become a safe haven for ponies who choose to leave their tribes to be together, like a secret love oasis or something, which is thought to be a myth by most, but is found by a lucky few who choose the path of love instead of war. Who knows, maybe Cadence creates a dating app or something which helps couples from different tribes find a place for themselves. Another thing that would be greatly affected would be the School of Friendship. With the tribes divided, the school would slowly begin to fall apart, and ponies would slowly stop attending. The once great school based on pony ideals would now be devoid of them, and be mostly run by other creatures. Ponyville itself would slowly become a ghost town as every pony would begin to leave. As the other kingdoms begin to cut ties with each other, Starlight, the CMCs, and the Young Six wouldn't be able to keep the school running anymore, and would be forced to shut it down. The Young Six would have it harder, having to yet again choose between their friendships and their kingdoms. Many moons ago, they would likely choose the first option, but now, with tensions rising between their kingdoms and the ponies, choosing their friendship could mean risking war between their nations, who would believe that the other tribes kidnapped them. They could tell their kingdoms and then leave, though it would be risky. Just like the Changelings, their fate is also unknown, and we'll have to wait for the new series to find out. Same holds true for the CMCs, though their families are a lot more likely to understand their situation and accept their choice. Who knows, if the Crystal Empire does become a safe haven, maybe they all move there. But what do you think? Am I right about Discord this time? Would the Crystal Empire really become a safe haven? And what of the other kingdoms? Is this how they would react? Fun fact, I actually like this topic so much, I decided to write a fanfiction about it. It's currently still in the works, but I should be finished with the first chapter soon. In the meantime, if you're interested in reading my other story, The Last Changeling, which may or may not be canonically linked to this one, the link should be in the description. But first, leave your thoughts down below in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and as always, remember, friendship is magic.